Wickedly Judged, dedicated to exposing wrongful convictions and fighting for justice reform in America. I'm Rebecca, your host. And if you're new here, this show is for anyone who believes that justice isn't just a verdict, it's a promise, a process, and far too often a fight. At Wickedly Judged, we shine a light on the cracks in our justice system by sharing the real stories of those who have been wrongfully accused, convicted, and forgotten by the courts. We give a voice to their families, advocates, and survivors who refuse to accept injustice as the end of their story. Before we dive in, I want to give a quick thank you to our sponsors: Veterans Alliance, Yarn Therapy for Me, Justin Apron, Liberty First Radio, NDVLB, Prime Ledger Group, JSIL, and Wickedly Judged Justice Activation Project. And a special thanks to JP Verse of Versifier Records for providing our powerful intro and outro music on our audio podcast. Your support fuels our mission. Thank you for standing with us in the fight to expose wrongful convictions and demanding true justice. Today, we're going to be doing an interview with Kent McGowen, who was a deputy in Harris County, Texas. And Kent will be telling us his story and what happened and how he was wrongfully convicted. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
People, and then ask you about your case. We're going to house you here and make you work doing this. I don't want. I'm not working. You can't. I'm not going to work. I don't slave you people. That's like what I told them. And I found it wound up after about 90 days of that nonsense. I wound up in a Price Daniel unit, which is named after the governor who was murdered by his wife when she caught him in a Dairy Queen with his girlfriend.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, all these guys, like my FBI guy, he's from New York. A producer is former NYPD guy. He's in New York, and then Jerry's from New York. And we make fun of each other accents and stuff back and forth, but I tell them these crazy stories, which are all confirmed. I can just Google it, and text it, and they're like, "That is everybody there sleep with each other and kill each other? Is that pretty much goes on down there all the time?"
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, I met Price Daniel, and they put me in the first time they put me in a cell was big Hispanic guy, maybe 30, around my age. He was in there for stabbing a Lubbock police officer 17 times. And he was a total nut. He would cry all the time. He didn't know who it was. He'd cry all the time and show me newspaper clippings. So there was a really good captain. I wish I remember her name. There was a sergeant there named Arrow. But the captain was a super nice lady, about 40. And so I went and talked to her. Whenever I go to a prison, I'd watch the command staff, be it senior warden, assistant warden, major, captain, lieutenant. And I'd see who wasn't, they're all a bunch of imbeciles. But I would watch vicious criminals, especially when they started bringing the Nigerian guards in Texas to flood it. I'd see who was trying to the least corrupt and least stupid. And that's who I'd go to, But then I went to that captain, and she said, "Man, I don't blame you." So they put me in a cell with this large African American dude who that wasn't going to work. Not a racial thing, but just why he was there and whatnot. I had a captain. So she puts me in the cell with this little guy. He was like the jungles of the Amazon or something. And he had his hair cut straight. He spoke somewhat kind of, I don't speak Spanish, but if you're talking to me, I figure what you're saying. I get my point across. I'm from Texas,
Right.
But this guy was some kind of, I don't know what he did, but he went completely insane. They had to drag him out. And so finally, a captain calls me out again. She goes, I said, "Hey, do you just have an auto thief, a burglar who has an IQ over 60 and, whatever?" And so she goes, "I got a guy for you, man." So they put me in a cell, this guy named Juan Flores. He was there for DWI. He was a Hispanic guy, super guy, smart guy. He owned a number of successful restaurants in San Antonio. And his two sisters were attorneys in San Antonio. They're, upper class people. Great guy. He wouldn't even pee if I was in this. He worked like midnight to 5 at laundry, I think it was. And he was so polite. I said, hey, we're locked in here for like 12 hours. You gotta pee, man. I still feel right. So we got on great. And his mom was 96 years old, and he was already supposed to have been released 30 days prior to this. There's some screw up in his paperwork.
Oh,
So he's
wow.
only going today. So he goes out and works one morning, comes in like at 5, and I saw, notice he's pacing around. I thought something happened to him. Is he all right, man? Yeah, yeah. And he goes, man, I can use the bathroom. And he's, I get diarrhea. He's like, man, we're locked in. Do your thing, man. Because in prison, like, just turn, and later we'll look at the other side, bro. And so, and which I didn't know he was having a heart attack. That's common heart attacks. I wasn't aware that's what was going on. And so he sits on his bunk and we're talking. And I was sitting there I was making a ramen noodle, which I'll never eat a ramen noodle soup again. That's a staple. I never eat ramen noodles. I haven't touched them. I can't even stand going down the aisle with the grocery store with them. But I go in there and or squeeze cheese, ramen noodles, squeeze cheese, or pouches of chili, negative. But anyway, I was sitting there getting water out of the sink for a ramen noodle, and he said something really bizarre. I turned and looked at him, and he just kills over. He falls in between. He falls in between his bunk, and there's like a table welded to the wall, the chair welded, in an area about this wide. Head first on his knees, arms on his back. Shit. And I've been in prison like 95 days, or probably about 100 days at this point. So I grabbed him, I'm trained in CPR, so I grabbed him. I started hitting the emergency button. And this is like between 5 and 6. The night shift guys come in and everybody starts getting up at 6, kind of like a little rest period thing. It was relatively quiet. And I didn't talk to anybody, except him, guard wise. And so I'm hitting the emergency button, nothing's happening. Hitting the emergency button, nothing's happening. I start kicking the door. To me, I'm jumping up, giving him CPR, right? And so I'm kicking, banging on the door, and I saw the inmates across looking at me. I think this old white guy. I'm thinking, oh, this old white guy's going crazy, man. You're all hollering, hey, you're going crazy in there. But I was trying to get the guards' attention, And
Right.
finally I hollered out, because everybody liked this old guy, I hollered out, I said, hey, Juan Flores is dead in here. Get some help. And so I was giving him CPR, and I didn't even know he had dentures until he vomited and went in my mouth. Puked in my mouth. Yeah. So I'm giving him a CPR, and the door rolls. And there's this little guard, about 60 years old, about 5'3", not even breaking 100 pounds. And I was in panic mode, It was 110 degrees, and there's no air conditioning down here. There heats in the cells. So I'm on my knees, rocking back and forth, killing my knees, giving CPR. And I said, CPR. I never seen this lady before since. And her eyes like this big. She's like, yes, So I already had vomit and shit on me. I said, do compressions, I was going mouth to mouth. And then she just physically wasn't large enough to press down. He's a good sized dude. And so I shoved her and I said, go get some help. Well, now it's shift change. Night shift's getting off, day shift's going on. So they get on the radio and they start hollering it was cell L213 or whatever. Well, not that had anything to do with it, but the captain later told me they thought it was me, So the guards and ward, they're on the way there in their cars, all hauling ass. And the warden's name she was a black female named Wilhelmina Howard. She was a medical doctor. I don't think I ever met her, but I remember I could hear her on the radio because now everybody starts running up there, and I'm down giving CPR, nobody helping. And I heard that warden on the radio, the guard's radio. She said, "Is he dead yet?" And the captain looked at me and I said, "No," And she was like, "We don't think so." This is the captain talking to the warden who's on the way in, and she said, "Don't let him die there. Do not let him die on my unit. Make sure get him out of there before he dies." Yeah, we're trying him to the hospital, right? So and now in this tiny cell, there's like 14 people in there, cutting the dead guy and me, right? Now he's defecated, he's urinated, vomit everywhere. And then finally the 2 nurses show up from the infirmary. They have nothing but a blood pressure cuff, right? They get in and one nurse put that on. She's like right next to my head, right, bending down. She puts the cuff on him. She's trying to get it. There's no pulse, And the other nurse grabs his hand, starts praying for him. And still at this point, nobody's helping with CPR. I told the nurse that at this point, it'd been like 40 minutes on my knees on concrete, 110 degrees. And then I said, "You're gonna have to help." She said, "Oh, we don't want to mess up the rhythm, And finally, the captain, who was pretty cool, she said, the captain goes, where's the ambulance? Nobody called 911. I gave the guy CPR for 55 minutes by myself. So anyway, make a long story short, the doctors get there, paramedics get there. Not one guard opened the door, helped them carry the striker up nothing. They get them on there hitting them, syringes and all that. And so they wheel them out of there. And then the captain said, "Hey, we need to get a statement from you. What happened?" You know. And so I said, "I'm going to shower and brush my teeth first." So I grabbed my gear, went out, showered, and I forgot my boots. I come back up, and there's a guard there named Everybody calls him Sidewinder. Crippled old mean old white guy. Matter of fact, I went to the unit 10 years later, and that dude was still there. That Sidewinder remembered that. But I go in, and that guy's bagging up all my stuff and the dead guy stuff, mixing it all up, whatever. I say, "What the hell are you doing, man? You better get your ass out of here." I said, "Tell you something, man. This is straight. This is a homicide scene, possible homicide scene. Because I knew I'm in there for that murder charge. I'm there with a dead guy. I know somebody could have hit him into his work, hit him in the head with a pan or something. I didn't know why he died.
Right.
And then, so I go down there, and then I go down to the warden, senior warden, assistant warden, mate. They're on a panic because they knew I want to let this fly, right? And so they get me in there. What happened? I said, "I'm not saying shit." And I said, "What? I'm not writing anything down. You let that man die." Because when I was holding that man, I was holding that man. Nobody would help. Now remember when they wheeled him out, the captain was the only one still in the cell. Everybody else was trying to get out. And then I was standing there, man. I had blood, vomit, urine, poop. The needles and shit everywhere. My hair's all crazy. I'm pouring sweat. That guy looks at me and goes, "Gallen, are you okay?" "Oh, hell no." I said, "Are you fucking, am I okay? Do I fucking look okay?" I said,
Right.
You let this man die in my arms." I said, I'm not going to sit on this, man. I saw what y'all did. And I've been in like 9,500 days. That set my tone right there with these people, what they do, what they are. And so, anyway, I get down there and warn all them. I wouldn't talk. So they said, "We're going to put you in SEG, administrative segregation, solitary." So they came in a few hours later and said, "Hey, a guy from OIG, their Office of Inspector General for TDC, which is it's a clown show. They're all prison guards, go to these little community colleges and get certified peace officers. So they cover for all these guards. But
Yep.
they're not going to arrest their fishing, beer drinking buddies. They plan it on the inmate, blame the inmates for everything." So anyway, this guy comes from Huntsville, and I was way the hell out, 85 miles the other side of Abilene. Anyway, this OIG guy comes out there, and he went to some kind of gang school, my brother. So I'm trying to pull that crap on him. But I said, "I'm not talking to talk to my lawyer." I said, "My lawyer, Jack Zimmerman, said you don't talk to the media and no law enforcement, no prison people. That's my job." So I told the guy, he goes, "Who's your lawyer?" I said, "Oh, I know Jack." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm gonna call them." All right. He goes, "Well, you need to step out." "Why do you even step out to talk to my lawyer?" Because that's just the way you handle it. So I just I stepped outside the door. He didn't call anybody. He calls me like 3 minutes later. "Well, I talked to Jack. He said get a statement." I said, "Man, who do you think you're dealing with, dude?" And so that's kind of started my whole theme of that. Then they sent me to solitary confinement in maximum security unit. No shower, nothing for 11 days. My parents found out where it was, and they came. But anyway, it was just that it was that all the time. Man, there was federal lawsuits, criminal charges. But you asked about if anybody got involved. Man, before they had typewriters in there, I handled thousands of letters daily. I'll send out letters, man. FBI, U.S. Marshals, DOJ, whatever county I was in, the sheriff, the police, the constables, the district attorney, and I've had several lawyers tell me that say we don't even open that. We just throw it in the shredder. It comes from prison, right? So in March 2013, um, all appeals were over. I got locked up on March 10th of 2002. Yeah. So in March 2013, all appeals were lost. My parents were dying. It was just, I had nothing else to do. So anyway, so I wrote I had a typewriter at that time, and the book mentions my typewriter, The Reasonable Doubts by Langton. Ken would
Mhm.
write, I mean, he wrote in there, then Ken broke out his typewriter, and he typed, and then he typed some more. So I typed thousands of letters. And then I went through 5 typewriters, burned them up. But when all hope was gone. And then I sent a letter to Ray Hunt, the executive director of the Houston Police Union. And I went to the academy with his brother. And I sent a letter to Ray. And I'd never met Ray, but of course he knew who I was. I knew who he was. So I sent a letter to Ray, and I said, "Hey, I went to the academy with your brother, class 132. I said, your dad came out hunting with us in our ranch. I said, and at the next sentence, I said, I'm one of you guys. I said, I'm still one of you. I'm one of the good guys. I'm a brother in blue. I need help. But I typed that letter, sent to Ray. At the same time, I typed a letter to Texas Rangers, and I said the same thing. I said, I said, I'm still one of y'all. I'm one of the good guys. I'm a brother in blue. I'm in trouble. I need help. So it gets overwhelming at times.
Take your time.
I actually got 2 bottles of water. But anyway, and Ray got the letter, and then he told me that he called my dad after he got it. He said, "What the hell's going on?" He goes, "I've heard all kind of things over the years," and my dad told him what really happened. And he said, "Well, don't tell Kent, but I'm gonna make some calls. I'm gonna come visit him." Of course, I called my dad. Texas, I went 9 years with no telephone. Texas was the last penal system in the country without phones. But I called my dad. Of course, my dad told me. He goes, "He's gonna come visit you." I said, "All right." And when I sent to the Texas Rangers, I sent it to the nearest where I was at that time. The nearest Texas Ranger in Brenham, Texas, I think. They went from Brenham to College Station to Waco, to my letter to Dallas, and then to Houston. And they brought a Texas Ranger in from El Paso who specialized in prosecutorial misconduct, if you will. And then this Ranger gets it. He called my dad and said, "What the hell's going on with this guy, man?" And so Ray came and saw me first. And I'll never forget when Ray came in there and he said, "I'll be honest with you, Ken." He goes, "I got your letter. I thought you're full of shit." He said, he doesn't cuss, but he didn't say that. And he said, he called his brother that went to academy with him. We rode patrol together. And his brother told him, "Hey, you got this one happy, He said, he started calling people to Houston PD that I worked with him for. They were getting the same story. Then he started calling people to the DA's office, same story. Then he started calling people to the sheriff's office, getting on the same story. That's when he stepped up to help, you know. And then the Texas Rangers, they came and they did a 4.5 year investigation. Scared the shit out of those prison people because already had a lawsuit. They thought it was about them. Every time the Rangers came out, they thought it was about the prison people. So they definitely backed off. But and then my dad put $1 million during this time period. My mom had died, and my dad posted $1 million reward on the internet for anybody who could legally get me out of this. Right? My dad posted that, and like 2 days later, it was raining. First week of December, second week of December of 14, right before my mom died, and the warden comes and gets me. He was a good dude. He comes and gets me. I walk out in the cold rain. I said, "What's this about?" He goes, "There's a attorney here to see." I said, "Who is it?" He goes, "I don't know. He's in a chauffeur-driven limousine." I said, "What?" I said, "Dick DeGarren?" He said, "No, it's got him Cugden, Cuddle." I said, "Cogdell?" And he said, "Yeah." And I hadn't heard my lawyer in 13 years. Never, you know. And so I go in there, and here he is with his presidential diamond bezel Rolex, and he's famous for his cufflinks. He has 2 pairs of wares. One, they're blue, right? They say, or blue and gold, and the blue is probably some emerald, whatever. But it says, "I'm a lawyer," and he has some that are a girl's butt, gold girl butts. He's famous for that. So I get in there, and I hadn't heard a word from him in 13 years. Okay, look at us. He's wearing his Armani suit and whatnot. I said, "What the hell are you doing here, Dan?" He goes, "I'm here to get you out." I knew it was about the $1 million on the internet, right? And
Right.
I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "My lawyers are my investigators, which he lied about, or so and so, and they're already in Killeen and Austin, and we've been working on this for months and months. I know you're innocent. I'm here to get you out of here." He opens up his portfolio, and in terms of paid, flips a piece of his legal pad, and there's the print up of the internet site, a picture and the reward. He flicks it real quick. And I said, "Well, imagine you need the money." "Well, I'm not here for any money, man." I said, "Daniel, I just saw it. You clearly seen it." "Well, I'm not charging you anything for this, man. We got to get this." But anyway, that led into like 4 years of his lies, and that happened on like a Tuesday. My mom and dad were both very ill at this point, and they had their driver drove them from Austin out to now about 2.5 hours where I was, the PAC unit. That's the last time I saw my mom. She died a few weeks after that. And then my dad died 11 months after that. But man, that Cogdell lie, he's a pathological liar. Another psychopath. Everybody down there, I've talked to every top, probably 100 lawyers down here trying to find, I have one now, but all of them said the same thing. Even the DA's office, people I'm dealing with there, because the DA's office is now trying to get me out of this, a whole different DA. And DA, they told me, they said, Congress, he's still fucking cocaine. He thinks it's funny. He brags about it. But yeah, wait till you look and see his little Cogdill Uncensored. I couldn't help myself make some comments on there on some of the stuff he said relate to my case. But he just lied and lied. But the Rangers got involved, and at this point, Ken Paxton, who's probably about to be our next senator, Ken Paxton was the attorney general in Texas, right? Well, he gets charged with 2 first-degree felonies and a third degree, which means he's looking at 20 years and 2 life terms. Well, I called Dan's office one day. Secretary puts me on hold, and she comes back, and he gets on the phone. He goes, "Hey, guess who's on the phone with?" I don't know. I don't have ESP, man. What are you talking about? Well, the attorney general hired Cogdell, and Cogdell went through his impeachment and all that. Yeah, watch him on that when Cogdell does his crying thing. But so I knew I was definitely, if I were ever was anywhere near the kitchen, I definitely at that point got shoved to the rear stove or whatever.
Right.
Rear burner. I'm trying to say. Man, Cogdell's lie and lie and lie. We kept bragging. He'd come up there every now and then, bragging, be high on drugs, and then he came on January 10th of 2018. Let me back up. The Texas Rangers had gotten involved about the same time. And then I started telling them about Cogdell. They said, he's lying. He's full of shit, right? He's helping fuck you. Yeah. And they said, look, because the Texas Rangers are the agency that investigated and were prosecuting the attorney general, right? So the Rangers asked me if I'd work with them against Cogdell and the attorney general, because Dan would brag to me about crazy stuff, right? They're doing illegal stuff, man. I said, absolutely. So about a month or two into that investigation, maybe longer, I get a message from the warden to call Cogdell. So I call Cogdell. He goes, man, because always high on coke, right? Man, my paranoid way of thinking. I think those Rangers investigate me. And I was like, well, no way. Oh wow, what makes you think that? So anyway, this in about 4 years into this, more around 4 years, a little bit more, the Rangers just disappear. I'll never forget this, man. That Ranger, his first name was Val. The last time I met with him, oh, here comes another choke up thing. When it comes to veterans and law enforcement, I'm down
Yeah.
for them, man. I'll back anybody up 1,000%. Even if you ever stood behind a badge or wore a military uniform, you know. But I remember that Ranger, man, was something else. I remember one time I was talking with him, and he said, we're talking about the Denholm, John Denholm, how Akerman got sent to prison. I told you earlier. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, I'll tell you some funny stories about the prison guards, how they bowing down to him just about. They were terrified of this Ranger. He came and talked to me. But I remember the last time I saw him, man, Val shook my hand. He shook my hand and put his left hand on my shoulder. He shook my hand and he goes, when during that meeting, he told me, he said, Ken, he goes, you have some very legitimate criminal complaints here, against these guys. Yeah, no shit. Well, and then when he was leaving that last time I ever saw him, he shook my right hand and put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, don't worry, brother. He said, don't worry, brother. I know what happened to you. I'm going to get you out of this. And he never saw me again. And so about a year later, I had a film crew from Europe coming over to film me. And I called Cogdell. And I was at Ray Hunt and his political buddy had me move. My son passed away, had me move to a unit closer to the house, about an hour out of Houston. And I called Dan. I said, hey, this film crew's coming here. They're going to be here at 2 o'clock. It's like 11 in the morning. I said, they're going to be here at 2 o'clock. And I said, I'm going to tell everything I know about you, Attorney General, unless you get your, because he told me he had a pardon signed. So he shows up there high on cocaine or meth, whatever, screaming hard. The warden had to come in there and calm him down, tell me he's got to leave. But we started talking about people involved in my case who wound up suspiciously dead, right? I said, look, dude, I'm in here, man. You're out there representing drug cartels, the mafia, the attorney general. You're the financial wherewithal of something happening to these people, or me in here. I said,
Right.
tell you this, I know you had the Texas Rangers call off. And I tell you what, I'm not a violent person. If I could have got that dude, I'd have choked him to death right there. He looked at me and spurred and said, you know what? It's good they have the attorney general in your back pocket. Then we found out from the Texas Rangers that Dan had the Attorney General call Steve McCraw, Executive Director of DPS, our state police. He called the major over the Texas Rangers, who called the captain at Company A in Houston, who was running this investigation with me, and ordered him to cease all investigations pertaining to me. Because the Rangers had two investigations, one against the Sheriff's Department, the DA's office, Harrison County, what happened. Then they had a secondary running against TDC, the parole board, and their idiot Office of Inspector General about some stuff that went on in prison. Yeah. But we later found out from a ranger told us that. He said, this is what happened. That dude called us off. What can we do? You know?
Right.
Yeah. But but anyway, I know you're running late. Get to the end of the story. Our 1 hour thing is going with the 3 hours. But
Hey, I mean, it's an interesting story.
a lot of editing there. Oh, I've told you about 5% what's going on. But I'll get to the end. We'll wrap it up with this. I started on the Rangers. I got bounced around. I wanted to go to a private unit to go to that prison entrepreneurship program. Like my class graduated, right? Was supposed to graduate right before COVID hit. So a couple of buddies of mine that went through it, a couple of sharp guys. We wound up running that whole program from the inside as a private unit, and our families were funding it because PP when it was a penny. That's a scam. But anyway, it's a money grubbing con man. But we taught the whole thing. But anyway, I finally got out, and senators, congressmen, the police union, bad guys, and that's what I told you. I went and met with the pro lady, and what she told me that she's gonna let me out. Then when I got out because of COVID, I had not seen the sun in 17 months because of COVID. And when I walked out, it was crazy, man. Her name was Tracy Long, by the way, the parole commissioner. But when I walked out, I didn't know who was going to be there. I wanted my mom, my dad, my oldest son. That was the main three people, you know. I knew that when you're locked up, something like that happens, you just can't deal with it, man. You got to worry about surviving, you know. And you just go crazy, you know. I mean, it's always there. You know?
Right.
But I walked out, kind of glanced around, see if they were there, just thinking maybe it wasn't real what I was told. But it was a Ray Hunt and his brother I'd gone to the academy with, back then, 35 years ago, and another HPD officer, And so I was trying to be a tough guy. They sent some clothes in there for me to wear. Man, putting on lace-up shoes was bizarre. A pair of blue jeans. I was like, they picked me up in an HPD, a black Houston PD black Suburban. But those guys came and rescued me, and then they gave me a phone. I had like eight and a half months on parole, and they said that the politicians involved and everybody, they said they give me a phone. They got a phone for me. They said, do not. I didn't know what Google was, man. They said, well, when I first get in the car, they try to hand me the phone. Here, call your family. And I was like, how do you turn it on? What do you dial? I don't know,
What is this?
And they took a funny picture of me in there anyway. But they gave me a phone and they said, hey, do not Google yourself, your lawyers, nothing. Do not give these bad guys any reason to jam you up on your own parole,
Right.
And when Tracy Long told me she was letting me out, immediately, so like I told you, it took 86 days, but she said no conditions. So paroles are waiting on you before, you changing your civilian clothes, and you had to cut to the visitation room. And then the warden actually hugged me and told me good luck. He liked me because we did that. They went TDC, I was private. But anyway, the parole people are there, right? Lady. And she put on an ankle monitor, and I said, I was supposed to have an ankle monitor? She goes, yeah, there's been some changes. And I said, well, you know what? I said, man, you can chain me to a tree in the woods. I don't care. Once a day, go out and throw a Whataburger to me. I'm good to go. Just get me the hell out of here,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, excuse me. Anyway, I get out on a Wednesday, took me where I was staying, and it had to be at parole Thursday morning the next day, right? It's in Houston. Man, there's people that are fist fighting in the waiting room. I was like, what the hell? And so anyway, they come and call me out. And it was a guy, and there's two people who are always assigned to me. There's a supervisor and a regular parole officer, right? And so they come and get me and walk out. And I said a guy about 50 walk out in front of me. And it was funny because they're both black. They're funny, man. And a lady goes, I tell you, she said, she goes, you with all these documentaries and all this stuff going on. And I said, yeah. And I said, yeah, those were a long time ago. She said, no, did you see that guy walking out right there? I said, yeah. She goes, no, that was a producer. What's he doing in here? He said he thought he was going to ask us about your parole. I said, well, what'd you tell him? We told him to get the fuck out of our office, And she told me, she said, look, she said, I said, I don't care, just law them out, but why do I have, because I literally could not step out the door. I mean, I could step a foot in the yard, nothing. I mean, literally, because of the ankle monitor, GPS. She said,
Yep.
look, yeah, she said, look, we don't think you're gonna do anything stupid or you're dangerous or anything. She goes, let me tell you, she goes, we have a lot of people, so we have a lot of powerful people watching us watch you. She said, God forbid something happens to you, your case is flagged, so we all get immediately notified. That's I'm gonna do what I have to do, you know. She said, just lay low, you know, I was all right. And so I was in Houston like maybe 2 months. I went to Montgomery County, which is more low keyed, where I used to live, next county north of Houston. But my parole there, she was a character, man. I went there, she told me the same thing. She goes, man, I got people watching you, watching me, and I watching me watch you. You just don't do anything. And she almost got me sent to prison accidentally. When you're on parole in Texas, you're on parole for 100 days. They don't tell you, but I study, I research everything, overanalyze everything. So I read the law on parole, right? And at 100 days, they're supposed to give you 8 hours off a week. You can leave, you know, and go, you know, try to acclimate you into going to restaurants or whatever, I guess.
Right.
But I went with my wife, my granddaughter. We went to, it's like a place that have bowling alleys and pizza and games and stuff,
Hmm.
you know, for my day off. And I had my cell phone in my pocket, and it went off. I could barely hear it ringing because it was noisy. I looked at it and it said private number. Well, all my buddies like policemen and stuff, so they all have like county and city phones. So I didn't recognize the number, so I didn't answer it. So I stuck it back in my pocket. Something always listen to that little voice in your head, right? Sometimes you put that vibrate on there. So I hit the little thing for it, and I felt it buzz in my pocket. And it said private number. So I answered it, and I said hello, and she goes, "Hey." I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Is this Joseph Kent McGowan?" I go, my middle name Kent, right? I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Hey, this is what Stacy, whatever her name was." I said, "Yeah, who are you with?" She goes, "Well, I'm calling you from Austin. I'm the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles Warrants Division. Where are you?" I said, "What?" I told her my exact address. She goes, "Where are you supposed to be?" I said, "Right here." Well, my parole officer, because you have to give them, you know, tell them where you're going to be from this hour to this hour, you know. And she didn't put
Right.
it in the computer. She said, if you want to answer that phone a second time, we're going to, because they can ping you wherever you are.
Right.
She said the sheriff's about to come get you. But anyway, end of my story is this. Got out, been raising hell, making calls. And then I was out for, maybe a year and a half, whatever. The FBI guy showed up, Michael Tabman. He did like a 3.5 year investigation. And then interspersed, I got offers for like documentaries or whatever. But when investigation was going on, I was attempting to hold it in. And Alan Warren is a renowned. He's written over, I think, 38 national New York Times bestsellers, many movies and documentaries. He has all kind of podcasts. But anyway, he became kind of a mentor of mine. He lives in Vancouver on his own island, and and then he just didn't want to do that. He wanted to tell my story, wanted to help me, but he's the way he told me. He said, "I don't want to disappoint you." The book. I said, "I don't care what you write, as long as it's the truth, you know."
Right.
So we waited till Tavin's investigation came, you know, completed. Then I called Alan. He said, "Well, let me look." And of all the thousands of letters, countless phone calls, texts, all this, in 20 minutes, I had two people call me. Alan Warren called me because I got to write. He wants to write your book. He's a perfect guy. You know, talk to him. I said, "Yeah." Give him my number, and that's when last year March, Jerry Langton, who wrote the book, was out now. And we had Jerry and I had Zoom meetings every Monday through Friday from 1 to 3 hours for 9 months going over all this. As you can tell, there's a lot to say, you know, in detail. He's talked to witnesses, man, and I've seen him thousands of documents. During all this, when Cadman was investigating, I went and I got where my legal documents were stored by attorney. I went there and got them. There was over 100,000 pages of documents. It took me, my daughter was staying with me for a few months. It took me 3 months, 18, 20, 22 hours a day to read them. There's documents in there that not only did it improve my innocence, but who set me up, how they did it, their motives. And these just if Cogdo would have randomly selected 3 or 4 documents, I'd never gone to trial. But we go in public with all those. And then, but Jerry's been writing the book, and then we have two very well-known producers that want to do a docu-series. And then I started shooting out people like you, and I've had not one podcaster say no. And I
No,
have some big ones
because
on it.
this
And
this story is So bizarre.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost not realistic. Like, no way that this could
man.
happen, you
Well,
know?
what Jerry said, the writer, because he didn't know if he just said the same thing as the Rangers, Ray Hunt, and all that, and Michael Tadnick. But we thought you're full of shit. We started, we listened to your story. Yeah, it sounds hinky. Then they started getting these documents. Then they started calling people that are not friends of mine, just people who are involved in it. And then I remember Jerry made I'd never heard of this saying before, but Jerry he goes, this is like 4, 5, 6 months ago. He goes, Kent, he goes, I've interviewed thousands of people in my career, thousands of people. He said, you know the difference between all of them and you? I said, I don't know, my bubbly personality, twinkly eye, smile, smirky smile. He said, no. He goes, dude, you have the receipts. I didn't know what
Yep.
he meant. I said, what does that mean? He said, you have the paperwork backing up, because he fact checked everything. You have paperwork, everything said, and every witness in on about it. He's talked to Lieutenant Coons. He's talked to all these people. They have no reason to defend me or not, except this is what happened. Homicide guys, they're all threatening their careers back then. But yeah, and I've had not one person. You know who Ian Bick is? He has hundreds of millions of viewers.
That name sounds familiar.
And what is it called? Something Ian Bick. But anyway, I'm lined up to go to see him in July. Then I've got one guy who's just as big, if not bigger, in Florida, going up to New York, and I've got a bunch of them lined up. But getting the story out, selling the book is making, that's way down the line. Mine's just, I think because of the Tabman and because of the book, it gets people's attention. This isn't just some, guy, because, if I, like Robert, like that friend of mine, Stead, his pseudonym, like he said, and like Ray Hunt said, that, people get out of prison, they don't do this. They just like, so what, I did it. You can't touch me now. Just move on their lives. But this has
Mhm.
consumed us, me. It's
Well,
like a
I mean,
big
it
hook. Can't
destroyed
get
your
out.
career, it destroyed your family. You
Yeah.
had people that were close to you pass away while you were locked up. I
Dang.
mean, it's that and people are like, "Oh, these wrongfully convicted people, when they get exonerated, they get these big $1 million settlements."
Mm,
Okay, that's great. So what if they do? Is that going to give you time with your mom before she passed away? Is that going to give you
mm,
back the time with your dad or your
yeah.
son before they
Mm,
passed away? There ain't an amount of money in the world that is going to give that back.
yeah. Well, I tell you what, in Texas, if you can't get into that compensation unless you're fully exonerated. Let me tell you,
Mhm.
state of Texas does not do that. They're not going to say
No.
we screwed up. Now we're going to pay you, because Texas pays the most of any state if you're going to
Mhm.
do it. And this thing with police officers in particularly. Brian Franklin, he's a Fort Worth police officer, and he had a. I'm gonna put his business out there, but he's a good friend of mine. He did 22 years, and Dick DeGuerin got him out. He did 22 years. From what I understand, I think his partner was going through a divorce, and the wife made allegations about their young daughters that, oh, my husband and his partner have been doing this. He got 2 life sentences. He never even met those people. And Dick DeGuerin got him out, and they retried him, got found not guilty. He's been out 9 years, not a penny. He didn't fight for 9 years, not a penny. The people, like getting a job, whatever, good luck. You know,
Mhm.
there's another friend of mine. He's also a Fort Worth officer. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go see him Sunday. He's in a unit right down the road from me. But he's in July. He gets out 30. He'll do every day of 30 years on a sentence. Where his name is Warren Hornick. His wife committed suicide. Every policeman that I know of, Eric Holtzclaw. I deal with all these people, you know, and their families. And then it's always
Holtzclaw,
someone
did you
within,
say?
huh?
Holtzclaw?
Yeah, Holtzclaw.
Yeah, I'm
Daniel, he's the
I'm
one who's got
trying to get
200 Oklahoma City. He's doing 265 years. Yeah,
Yeah, I've been talking to his wife about having
yeah.
her on the podcast
I
too,
get,
because
yeah,
his was another crazy story that I
yeah,
was reading, and I'm like,
yeah.
I,
Potts,
there, there ain't no
Potts up
way.
in yeah, Potts up in Milwaukee. Derek Chauvin. I communicate with all these people and their families. But this thing with police officers in particular is unique. It's always someone within our own agency that had a personal beef with us.
Hmm.
Like Warren Hornick, his wife was very wealthy to do good, excellent lawyer, and she was she was bipolar. And either they went out drinking at a party, and she either took it on her medicine or didn't take her medicine, whatever. It made her, want to kill herself. And it was a homicide detective that he had personal issues with, and he was cleared by internal affairs homicide. He lived out in the county, but he worked in Tarrant County, but worked for Fort Worth. the chief, the sheriff, everybody came out to his house. Everybody knew who he was. 30 years. And man, they don't care. They dump you out without a penny. I don't know. I know everything about Texas law. I don't know about other states, but here, if you don't have family or somebody out there, they literally give you a check for $50. They let you out of prison, and there's a little mom and pop store that take like 15 of it to cash it for you, and you're on your own. And there's hookers and drug dealers standing there to take the rest of your money and get you wound up right back in.
Yep.
You deal with this system. There's no rehabilitation. It's simply warehousing.
It's one of the most successful businesses in the United States.
Yeah. Actually, when I got out, I think Biden was running. And one of Biden's promises was to get rid of the private prisons.
Mm.
And then,
good luck with that.
And then that company, MTC, Management Training Corporation, they own that unit, that private unit. I was up where I got out. And actually, the owner of that flew down here on his corporate jet to meet with me because I wrote to some politicians about how well they handled COVID, But they, but they wanted me to go talk to Texas, to the state Senate, to those people, the state legislature, about what goes on there. Well, I got another David Lowe. He's a state rep out of Dallas County. He wants to meet me next month. He's over the corrections committee. But man, I lay it out there. I don't care. When it comes to those prison people, man. And then when I was in, man, it was like, I got out in 2002, maybe in 2000. I got out July 14th of 21. Maybe in 2017, 18, the Nigerians started showing up as prison guards. Vicious, vile criminals. And they hated the people they hated everybody. The most people they hated were the American blacks. And they would tell them, I hate you American blacks, you fucking American N-word and stuff like that. And I'm like, what the hell? And there's one little girl, she literally had tribal marks carved in her face. And I was in infirmary somewhere. And I asked her, I said, hey, where are you from? Nigeria. I said, why do you treat men so bad in here? So I should tell people, hey, not everybody in white is bad guys. Not everybody in gray are good guys. And she told me, she said that in their culture that they are respectful to their men unless the men disrespect them, even their own people, not just prisoners, But it was crazy tribal. Matter of fact, I posted something on the web, TDCJ Troll. That guy's funny. I always put stuff on there with him. But I remember this one, he had no rank. He was an older Nigerian guy. 60 or something. But like the captains, lieutenant, the major, they'd like stand up when he walked in. He'd walk in and sit in their chair and stuff. So I was asking that girl why they're so vicious. I say, why do you do that? And she said that he was the head of their tribe, whatever, Nigeria. And she said they come over here just in droves. They come in TDC, the Texas prisons. They put you right to work. If you can speak it of, because in Nigeria, the national language is English. But they, as long as they can speak English enough that you can understand them, then they got a job. But those people are vicious. They are just beyond your typical prison guard. I go round and round with them all the time. They try to tell me something. I'd say, I have no idea what you're saying, man. What? I knew, I could tell. I just walk off. I can't understand you. And they order me to do stuff, I wouldn't do it. I don't know what this guy's saying. I don't speak Swahili or whatever. But anyway, when I got out and then couldn't find a lawyer, end of our story, I promise. When I got out, called the top lawyers in the state. I finally found one in Dallas. He's absolutely not scared at all because they're all scared of Cogdell, my lawyer.
Right.
And then about 10, 11 weeks ago, I saw a Hail Mary out when we go public, you'll probably know who she is, but I threw a Hail Mary out to this female lawyer. Because I've bumped heads with her for years, thinking there's no way she's going to help me, And her mortal enemy in life is Dan Cogdell.
Oh.
Dan Cogdell and Clapper and Denholm, the two guys that set me up, she's dealt with all of them for 35, 40 years. And I still Hail Mary out, and I couldn't believe she called me back. And then the book, I started first, like about 11 months ago, I called the DA's office. They have a new division. Because the DA's office tried to get me out in 11 and 12. Then it was called the Post-Conviction Integrity Review Division, or unit. Now they have the CID, the Conviction Integrity Division. About 11 months ago, Hail Mary went out there. They got a new DA. And a guy calls me, the chief of the division. and we're talking about this. He told me, he said, "Look, I know Cogdell. He's nothing but a cokehead. He thinks it's funny. He still brags about it, you know." And then he said, "We're going to look in your case," because the new DA came in and said he's formed that division, brought that guy in. He's a very well-known attorney. And then he said that he told him to get that division going. And then he gave them 300 like something cases that have been 20, 30, 40 years old, all the corruption back then. They narrowed it down to 34 after about 6 months. Mine was supposedly in there, right? So I checked base this guy, I checked back. Yeah, we're dealing with cases, older than yours. I said, that's whatever, man. The day that book went public, I get a text from the DA's office, the chief of the
Imagine
division.
that.
Yeah, this is on Wednesday, the 20th. He said, "Hey, just give you a heads up. We're having a closed internal office meeting about your case sometime this week," which would have been last Thursday or Friday. But I couldn't get him to answer the phone like about 11 weeks ago, right? So I texted him. I found out he was out of town. But I just Hail Mary wanted this lawyer, this female lawyer. I can when she called me back like an hour later, you know? And she said, "Hey, you're Kent McGowen, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You're the one who's HP officer with the sheriff and got jammed upside the prison." That's me. And she kept calling me Deputy McGowan, which is kind of odd. And then she said, I can already I'm going to explain this. When she said when she was with the DA's office at a certain position, she goes, like almost 30 years. So she knew my whole case. She saw what was going on. It'd take me hours to tell you the dirty stuff that people came forward with. But anyway, and she said, she goes, when I was there, she said, millions of felony cases. She goes, I remember one, it was yours. I said, yeah. And then she said, well, you have to, she said, I'm going to help you because I know what happened. She goes, I'm the only lawyer in the state that's going to fight Cogdell. I'm not afraid of him. So I went and met with her a few times, and then got everything done. But I have I'm on Fox News Monday night on live. I talked to her yesterday. I said, is it okay if I, because it's going to drop a nuke in this whole thing. It will. But she said, just hang tight. I mean, she's my lawyer. She took the case. We got the finances, whatever straight. But she said, just don't mention now. She said, because it's when it goes public that she's my attorney, she said it's going to go crazy on you guys, So that's fine. But so I just said, no, I have the best lawyer that probably I could ever in this country get, who absolutely is the only one who's not afraid of Cogdell and hates, loathes Cogdell, Clapper, Denham, the three main guys. He's still, he set me up. So, but
That's awesome.
yeah, so that's about to blow up. But that's where we sit. That's where we sit as of today.
That's awesome.
Yeah, since that book came out, I've had a bunch of Houston PD guys, Harris County sheriffs texting me, "Hey, what about this crazy? Hey, what about that? Yeah. So, but
Well, I definitely hope that you can either get the pardon, which, I mean, those are great, but I would rather see the whole conviction be overturned.
Yeah.
The whole, innocence thing, the felony record wiped completely clean. And then I think that the Harris County Sheriff's Department, or at least Harris County, owes you how many years of back pay? That's what I think.
Well, if this thing went, the sheriff's department owes me 34 years back pay plus seniority.
Yep.
And in Texas pays, I think it's 185,000 a year when you're locked up, and then half that we're on parole or probation. But they're never going. But see, if you take that settlement from the state, not the county, you can't sue a state or state. You serve individuals, you sue counties, municipalities. But if you take that money from the state, they're never going to say, "Oh, we're sorry, we screwed up here." Never, not in Texas.
But not anywhere.
Yeah, you have to sign for them. You have to sign a covenant not to sue anybody. Which hell no, because this lawyer she's handling all the lawsuits. Actually, Ben Crump, you know who he is. Every time an African American gets shot or whatever, he's that lawyer. He actually has an African accent. Who shows up? Trayvon Martin and everybody else. She's buddies with him. Yeah. But she said he's not going to help you because you're not the right color. But there's a lawyer here in Houston. He's also an African American. I think his name is Benjamin Hall. She's buddies with him. But she said we'll bring him in when the wait. Don't take that officially. That's between you and me.
Yeah.
Everything else you can talk about that. But she said that he'll handle all the civil. She'll bring him in. So she said, don't worry about suing, or even if we get sued, ever going public. So
Hey, I mean, the truth is the best defense against defamation.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? We have a letter that we call the Cogdill Confession. When my idiot lawyer, when I lost my appeals with the Zimmermans, Jack, he was a brigadier general in the Marine Corps, and his daughter was a colonel, Terry. And then I had to get a writ lawyer, which is Randy Schaefer, who actually despises Cogdill. Everybody hates Cogdill for good reason. But yeah, so let me tell you about that on the writ thing. Completely drew a blank. But anyway, that's where we're sitting as far as where we are right now. So I forgot, I blew around my mind. We're talking about getting the compensation or whatever, but that'll never happen. But the lawsuits, the Cogdill confession letter. Cogdill wrote a personal letter, typed it on. They used to have, they had computers. What do they call it? What do they call it? Like a typewriter, but it had the LED screen.
Oh, like a word processor
Yeah, word
or
processor.
something?
He typed it on a word processor and sent it to him. We have that letter. Cogdill does not know. Man, we warned him. He refuses to cooperate. So, all right, dude. But that letter,
Well,
he put that letter to my writ lawyer that, hey, I effed up. I never talked to any witnesses. I never interviewed this person. I didn't know what I was doing in trial. My mind was elsewhere. He confessed everything to my writ lawyer, and somehow that wound up, somehow that got in my file. When I
oh,
read that,
darn.
I was like, holy crap, man. So,
That's almost like a smoking gun.
yeah. But if you want, Jerry will interview with you for sure, the writer.
Yeah,
I
like I
know,
said, I
Tammy.
would like to do you and him and the FBI guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he did the other day, the Santana True Crime. Those guys,
Hmm.
one's a retired policeman, the brothers, the other one's a college professor. They wanted to do Jerry and then me. I have them next Thursday. Jerry and then me, and then Tammy, the FBI guy, then do me another, as a follow up, and to talk about how crazy it was in prison. But at Fox News Monday, because they're afraid of Cogdill, but they said, we're just going to focus on, in prison, when I was locked up, and then how I got out, got back on my feet, and this, what's going on now, whatever. But the guy's really cool. They're helping me out because I've known these guys 30 something years. They said, look, whenever it comes up to like the trial or Cogdill, whatever, just refer to the book, So that's it, all that's in the book. But like when Alan Warren, he's written countless books. The guy who introduced me to Jerry, the writer of Vancouver, he told me, he said, hey, when you interview, because I did one with him, and I talked way too quickly, so I'm trying to slow it down. He said, everyone you do will get better. But
It will.
he said, look, before I interviewed with him, he said, don't try to pitch the book. He said, that's not what you're here for. And I said, oh, I'm just going to get the story out there. But he
Hmm.
said, refer to it 2-3 times, whatever. Of course, Jerry, who wrote the book, he's telling me, hey, pitch the book, pitch the book. When I read the book, there were some errors in that book. And he put in there that some things I told him weren't true. And he led one up about my lawyers going to law school together, which I was right about that, And something, because
Right.
I haven't read the book. I read just the rough draft, which was 1,400 pages long, the original rough draft. We had to narrow it down to 400. But now I know it's in Barnes and Noble. It's been on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. He said it'll be in the book, the brick and mortar stores probably in a few weeks because apparently it's doing well. But it's
What's the
in
name of it?
and what it says, Bronx Kill is his publishing company, so it's that, and you can get ebooks through 12 other outlets, which I don't know. I never read any ebook. How's that? But the name of the book, yeah, we definitely need to mention the book.
For
Is
sure.
it's Reasonable Doubts, plural, Reasonable Doubts, and then the subtitle, I guess you want to put a colon, is How Rumor and Innuendo Convicted Deputy Kent McGowen of Murder. And then you don't have to, but if you want to, I have insane legal fees, and I have a Give Send Go, which I've had for like 5 years, but I never advertise it. If you want to mention that on Give Send Go, if anyone wants to donate to my legal fees,
How do they find the Give Send Go? What's it under?
I think you just Google and put my name in there. I think it comes up. I'm on my phone. I'll
Okay.
text you because it's like GT113 or something. If you just do this, just look at it because on my phone it comes up because I have it on my phone. But just whenever you get a chance, just go to Give, Send, Go. It's a crowdfunding,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in there under the uh, first responders. But see, if you're accused of a violent situation, a violent crime, they just because Gifts and Go, man, they clans, but anybody you want on there. They don't matter. They're a Christian outfit, and everybody, they think their attitude is anybody has a right to speak.
Right.
But but it has to go straight to the attorney. So I'll put it off legal of legal or something like that, and put it on first responder. I talked to them. They said that's cool, but it still says going to me, but it's going to my lawyer. But she doesn't want to go public yet. She said, let me get everything because she said it's going to go ballistic when he goes out with her.
It will. Yeah.
So,
It will.
but
So
I'll give Jerry your email or your whatever, have your contact, and he'll interview you. But
I
it's
think
funny,
you got my, no, you don't have my LinkedIn.
what's funny when you see his picture, like if you go to YouTube and look up the Santana interview,
mhm.
Jerry's like he's this big old Irish dude, New York, little rough looking guy. When he talks to you, when my wife interviewed with him, she's going, I didn't think it was him at first. I was wondering, she goes, his voice doesn't match his appearance. He has like this high voice, but the picture of him, he's this big old short hair, big mean looking rough dude. Yeah,
Oh,
so don't
that's
go,
great.
is this your daughter or is this you talking, Yeah. But he's a smart dude. We went around and around on the title. We had settled on several, and in all the thousands of letters I typed and wrote, and over the years, I started out at the heading. I always put um, actual innocence semicolon utter corruption. So where are we going to go with that? You know, he said, "Man, that's brilliant. That's everything. That's bold. That's just everything right there. Actual." And then he started changing around on that, and then he said, "I did the cover. I didn't do the cover because I had my that's my Houston PD ID on the cover, but it's
Mhm.
like it's a little one you carried on a mag. It was a mag card." And I say, hey, I still have that thing, man. He goes, "Get your prison ID," and I go, "That's funny." And so I say, "Hey, let's put these on the cover." I said, what a juxtaposition that is, right? From the highest
Right.
point in my life, and a badass HPD officer, freaking convict, old guy. I said, that's everything's right in between those two pictures. Then he rounded off the corners of IDs. And one of them had my date of birth. They could tell him, hey, dude, take that date of birth. I don't want my, he goes, it's not like your information is not out there, but I want it flagging it, on my
Right.
prison ID. So if you go like Barnes and Noble, like you look up the ebook, it's not on there, my date of birth, but the other one does. But on the book, it's all changed, because I read the rough draft, made a bunch of copies. I mean, on corrections, which I hope he's changed. But it's not a make it or break it thing. But in the writing of the book, if you ever read it, I mean, the whole theme of the book basically, which this is true, that I was an arrogant asshole. I mean, I was 20 years old when I graduated the police academy in Houston. My brother had to buy a box of bullets. I couldn't even buy bullets. But you throw because I grew up in a upper middle class family, upper class family, and they very protective. They all in the military. My siblings did. My family, my dad was in the Air Force, whatnot. But then when got married 6 days after I turned 18, man, when I was thrown out there in Houston and I got a police academy, if you graduated top 10% of your class, you could choose a division you wanted to. So I went to West Side where I grew up, the West Side of Houston, nice part of Houston. I couldn't believe what was going on in my neighborhood where I grew up. But plus I was always running in. I'm making no excuse, absolutely wrong, cheating on your wife, but it was the cult everybody did. It was
Right.
crazy. And then, girls in my high school were running into, and it was just that was in the 80s, all the big dance clubs, all the nice restaurants, all the celebrities, and politicians, mayor, they all lived out there where I lived. George Bush lived down the street, Billy Gibbons lived down the street from ZZ Top. But man, I was thrown into that culture that I'm trained, I'm field training officer. I just, because everyone was married. We literally had a class in the police academy on if you're married and you had a girlfriend, she was called your chip. And if you're a female and you're married and you have a boyfriend, it's called a chap. But we literally had a class on if you're married and you have a girlfriend,. How to be cool about it. It was this total culture. You can do that stuff nowadays. You want to, not to morally, morally reprehensible, absolutely. Yeah, not illegal,
Right.
that was, I was 20, 21, 23, 25 years old. It was crazy. Plus, I was divorced, you know, because of that. I was married for 7 years, divorced for 7 years, then got remarried. And then I was in prison like 7 years. We got divorced, but I'm at our house right now. We remain best friends since first day of 10th grade, August 28th of 1980. Yeah,
I,
I spend most of my time here.
I met my husband when I was a sophomore in high school, and we've been best friends ever since.
Yeah.
Got married last year.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. He
Well, that's
finally got
cool.
moved to a prison that would allow us to get married. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
Is he in
yay, why
Ohio?
not?
He's in Ohio.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
He's actually like 10 minutes down the road from me.
I deal with a lot of people in Ohio. Have you seen that sheriff? Not a deputy. The sheriff from Sandusky County, Overmeyer. He wound up going to prison and wrote a book.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll follow him. There's a lot of crazy stuff goes on in Ohio.
Yes.
Like Denholm and Rogero from there. There's crazy.
It's got to be crazy stuff here. Oh, for
I'll tell
sure.
you, when I deal with my guys that deal with New York, their accents and whatever. I'll tell you something funny. I'll let you go. Because it's been, farm about 2 hours from here, right? So I was out in my Jeep, out of Jeep then, and some old country guy pulls up and was asking about the farm next door, ranch next door, a friend of mine. And I was talking to a Jerry on like this. I say, hang on, sorry, somebody pulling up. This guy gets out, spin the back, and he goes, howdy. And I said, how you doing? And he said, hey, is this 9059 FM 2259? I said, no. I said, that's the place next to us. That's Mr. Cabin you're looking for. And he goes, yes, sir, yes, sir. So he's down there. He'll be waiting on. He go, I appreciate it. I said, all right, I appreciate it. Thank you. I look back at Jerry and he's laughing his ass off on the phone. He said, that's the most country ass fucking redneck conversation I ever heard in my entire life.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
But
so
that's how it is, though. I mean, it's how it is in the South, at least.
yeah, I was texting with the producer. He's up there too. And the way they talk, man. And he said, I was typing something. I said, I was talking about going up there in a month or so, a few weeks. And I said, yeah, I'll be up there. I'll put WIT, WITYOUS, WIT use guys. I put next to it, I said, hey, it's as close as I could get to your New York Yankee accent. He thought that was pretty funny. But when they
That's
say
crazy.
Gabba, they kept saying, well, we got it. When I first started dealing with them, I said, what are you saying? And I said, what do you mean? Yeah, GATA. What is GATTA? What does that mean? They said, what? I said, GATA. I said, no, what is it? They're saying like you have to. You got
Mm-hmm.
to.
You gotta.
GATA. We got
Yep.
it. In New York. You gotta get this thing going, Z's. What? Oh, I don't speak that.
Yeah.
But all right, well, I guess I'll let you go. My phone's about out of juice. I got about 30 texts coming in.
Well,
But
I
it was cool
appreciate
talking
you
with you.
talking with me.
Yeah, of course, there's a
Yes.
lot more, a lot here. But if you want to like encapsulate this and
Hmm.
like you told me you had a bunch of questions, and we can redo this and keep it within like an hour. You see what I mean? If you go through and say, okay, he answered this question, whatever. If you want to redo it, so it only takes like I guess your podcast for an hour, I guess, is whatever.
Well, my audio podcast are anywhere from 7 minutes to 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah,
My video podcast or whatever I want to do.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
like, I can take the audio from this one and
Mm-hmm.
rip it out of the video, and I can break this up into 2 or 3 audio podcast
Mm-hmm.
episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna throw the whole 4 hours up on YouTube. It's all going up.
Yeah. Well, you're probably getting some people calling you. What?
I'm good with that.
Well, what I'll do is as soon as we hang up, I'll shoot Jerry a text with your contact. He'll definitely interview with you. Talman's got some other companies and stuff going on, so he said, "Hey, I'll do them whenever I can." So he kind of needs to step up because my deal with my contractor, just having his name out there for me gets people like when I was trying to find a lawyer and get the DA's office involved. I
Hmm.
say, hey, I got this guy, 26-year veteran, retired supervisory special agent of the FBI investigating this case, man. Can you write a statement for me? I still got the DA's office moving. See, I know running it. And yeah, he wrote the forward from the book. I'll be honest with you, I get emotional at times.
Hmm.
It's understandable. When I read what he wrote in that, I got choked up, man. When he wrote the forward, 'cause he didn't know me from Adam. He flew down here a year ago in November, met with a bunch of people, whatever. But he's from New York too. They're harsh. Those people are harsh, man.
They are.
They say it. They don't mind. They're gonna say what's out there.
Sure.
Like you'll find out here in the next few weeks. The producer has the one we want to go with. Man, he's straight out there. I mean, he's like Let me tell you, just the way it goes, he's a character. All right, man. Well, it was fantastic speaking with you. I'm sorry it ran over about 3 hours, but
Oh, no, you are fine. I
yeah,
like to hear the whole story, and I'm sure people do too, because a lot of times when you do an interview that's question answer, a lot of stuff gets left out.
yeah,
You lose the personal bit of it. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And it
yeah,
just becomes so monotonous answering the same questions.
yes, yes.
So I like to keep it more on a personal level and let people get to know you as a person, not
Hmm.
just, hey, I got wrongfully convicted and now I'm fighting my case, because
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot
until
more to this than that.
until we change society's impression of criminals, because there are actual criminals in the world, and there are some that are absolutely horrible people that really don't even deserve to breathe.
Hmm.
Um, but what about the other 200,000 prisoners across the United States that are completely innocent and are
Yeah,
still sitting behind bars? Who fights for them? Who speaks up for them?
nobody.
That's why I'm here.
You'll have lawyers. You'll have lawyers take your money and say they're
Yep.
going to help you until you run out of money. Then they're out of here.
That's exactly what happened to me and my husband.
Yeah. Once you run out of money, you're done.
So now I'm fighting it, writing motions, doing everything I can do. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm learning real quick.
Well, when you put this either the audio or the visual, whichever, if you have people start asking you questions,
Mhm.
just note those questions or tell them, hey, we'll do a live podcast or whatever to answer them. Because I know in
Okay.
Santana, I know a guy named Bill. He's up there now. Bill Selby Saturday, but Santana's going to be live because
Okay.
it's going to in the news going to be live because he wants people to call in with questions after they listen to Jerry, the writer, and then he goes, "You mind going live?" I said, "Oh man, I'm not liking words.
Right.
I've never been accused of being polysiloquent ever, but I will." So they'll ask the questions. I say, I have an answer, legitimate, verifiable, backed up, corroborated, answer for everything we have. So, all right,
Sweet.
well,
Well, I'm
cool.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, just shoot those to me just at your convenience whenever, and I'm gonna post them on all my stuff too, and a lot of people will
All
see
right.
that. And then, all right, and I'll have Jerry get in touch with you as whenever he gets a second to do it.
Sounds
All right,
great. Thank
cool.
you.
Thanks. It was nice meeting you. Good luck on
Nice
your
meeting you
husband.
too.
All right, bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye. Don't let these stories end just because this episode is over. If you believe in the work that we're doing, here's how you can help us right now. Follow Wickedly Judged wherever you listen to podcasts. Share this episode with someone who cares about truth and accountability. Follow us on social media. Leave a review. It's one of the fastest ways to help more people find these cases. If you happen to share a post on social media, tag us so we can thank you and amplify the conversation. And if you're able to support the mission directly, please donate to help fuel our investigations, advocacy, and education efforts. Or support the work by grabbing merchandise at wickedlyjudged.com. Every share, review, donation, and purchase helps us keep pushing for real justice reform. As always, stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay hopeful, because nobody deserves to be wickedly judged.